Nobody was supposed to hear this. Not the fans, not the media, not TeofimoLopez, and definitely not the boxing gods who love chaos more than order. Because when Terence "Bud" Crawford leans in close and starts talking strategy, careers don't. Just change legacies, either get crowned or cremated. This wasn't a motivational speech. This wasn't friendly advice. This was a surgical breakdown delivered with the calm confidence of a man who's already beaten everyone they said couldn't be beaten. Picture this moment like a leaked Pentagon briefing. Except instead of missiles and maps, it's footwork, timing, and ego being dissected under fluorescent gym lights. Crawford didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The words landed heavier than a left hook from a prime Mike Tyson. And when ShakurStevenson listened, the room felt like it stopped breathing. Fans think boxing is about power. That's cute. That's like thinking chess is about punching the board. What Crawford revealed was something darker, colder, and way more dangerous. A blueprint that turns Teofimo's greatest weapon into his biggest weakness. This wasn't hype. This wasn't theory. This was the kind of truth that makes grown champions suddenly avoid eye contact. Nobody expected this conversation to leak because it wasn't supposed to exist. Terence Crawford doesn't just give advice away like free Wi-Fi. This is a man who treats information the way Vegas treats loaded dice, carefully, quietly, and only when the odds are already stacked. So when word started circulating that Crawford had been seen talking to ShakurStevenson about TeofimoLopez, people didn't react with excitement. They reacted with panic. Because when Bud talks strategy, someone's highlight reel usually turns into a cautionary tale. TeofimoLopez isn't just a fighter. He's a walking contradiction wrapped in confidence, hype, and emotional volatility. One night he looks like the future of boxing. The next night he looks like a man arguing with his own reflection between rounds. That unpredictability is what made him dangerous, but it's also what made him vulnerable. And Crawford knows vulnerability when he smells it. He's made a career out of exposing it, polishing it, and serving it under bright lights. This wasn't a motivational chat. This wasn't stay focused, young king energy. This was Crawford calmly dismantling the myth of TeofimoLopez like a professor erasing a chalkboard full of lies. It's a kind of breakdown that doesn't hype you up. It chills you. Shakur wasn't nodding like a fan. He was listening like a man, realizing the door he's been knocking on has been unlocked the whole time. The scandal wasn't that Crawford talked. The scandal was what he allegedly said. Because according to whispers that spread faster than boxing Twitter on fight night, Crawford didn't just critique Teofimo's style. He exposed the engine behind it. The emotions, the impatience, the moments where discipline slips and ego grabs the steering wheel. Crawford allegedly told Shakur that Teofimo doesn't lose because he's outboxed. He loses because he outthinks himself in real time. That's when this stopped being about punches. Teofimo fights like every moment needs to be legendary. Every exchange has to be dramatic. Every round needs a viral clip. And Crawford fights like he's balancing a checkbook. .com, methodical, ruthless. He allegedly pointed out that Teofimo burns energy chasing moments instead of controlling minutes. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. It's like realizing the magician's assistant has been pulling the strings the whole time. Shakur's style suddenly made terrifying sense in this context. Patience, precision, defense, so clean it feels personal. Crawford allegedly explained that Teofimo doesn't get uncomfortable when you hit him. He gets uncomfortable when you don't. When you refuse to engage on his terms. When you let his mind start racing faster than his hands. That's when the cracks show. That's when the confidence turns performative. The boxing world loves to pretend power solves everything. That's adorable. That's like thinking shouting louder wins an argument. Crawford knows better. He's beaten power, speed, hype, and narratives without breaking a sweat. So when he allegedly told Shakur that Teofimo's explosiveness is actually a trap, ears perked up. Because explosiveness fades, ego doesn't. The first reactions were quiet, but they were loud in meaning. Fighters started subtweeting. Analysts suddenly became vague. Teofimo's name popped up in conversations that had nothing to do with him. That's how you know something real is happening. When nobody wants to say it out loud, but everybody is adjusting their tone. The boxing community doesn't panic unless there's smoke, and there was smoke everywhere. Fans started rewinding old fights like conspiracy theorists re-watching grainy footage. The moments where Teofimo lunged. The rounds where frustration crept into his face. The seconds where discipline evaporated. And chaos took over. Suddenly, Crawford's alleged words didn't sound like speculation. They sounded like a diagnosis. And Shakur, sitting there, absorbing it all, reportedly looked less like a student and more like a man holding a loaded blueprint. This is where it got uncomfortable, because Teofimo isn't just fighting opponents. He's fighting expectations, pressure, and a fan base that demands fireworks every time. Crawford allegedly highlighted that Shakur doesn't need to beat Teofimo physically first. He needs to beat the version of Teofimo that exists in his own head. The one that wants to prove something. The one that hates being ignored. The one that starts swinging just to feel in control again. That revelation alone was enough to make promoters nervous. The boxing industry thrives on rivalries, but it survives on unpredictability. And Crawford doesn't remove unpredictability, he weaponizes it. If Shakur follows this blueprint, the fight doesn't become a war. It becomes a slow suffocation. The kind that looks boring to casuals until the opponent realizes theirs. No air left. That's when panic sets in. That's when mistakes get expensive. And the timing of this leak? Suspicious at best. Convenient at worst. Because Teofimo had been talking a lot. Confidence spilling out like an open faucet. Laughing. At matchups, dismissing threats, playing the role of untouchable star. Meanwhile, Crawford was doing what he always does, watching, studying, waiting for the moment when truth hurts more than trash talk. By the time fans realized what was happening, the narrative had already shifted. This wasn't about if Shakur could beat Teofimo anymore. It was about whether Teofimo could handle someone who refuses to play his game. Someone coached directly or indirectly by one of the coldest minds boxing has ever produced. And that's when the tension really started to build. Because once a secret like this leaks, you can't put it back in the bottle. Teofimo could train harder. He could talk louder. He could deny everything. But the seed had been planted. Every pause, every missed punch, every impatient step forward would now be analyzed through Crawford's lens. Once that seed was planted, it didn't just grow, it mutated. Boxing Twitter turned into a digital crime scene overnight. Suddenly, everyone was an analyst, a psychologist, and a body language expert with slow-motion clips and red circles. Teofimo's past fights were getting replayed like leaked celebrity voicemails. And every moment of impatience was being treated like evidence. Fans weren't watching boxing anymore, okay? They were conducting an autopsy in real time. The memes came first. They always do. Teofimo swinging at air with captions like Crawford said, "Wait," and Shakur letting the rent due. Clips of Shakur smiling calmly in the ring were mashed up with ominous music, like he'd just been handed the villain's master plan. Someone even compared it to Thanos getting the Infinity Stones one by one. Except instead of stones, it was patience, defense, timing, and ego control. The internet never misses a chance to be disrespectful, especially when it smells vulnerability. And Teofimo, he felt it, You could see it in interviews. The laughs got louder, the answers got longer. The confidence started sounding less like certainty and more like reassurance. That's always the tell. When a fighter starts explaining instead of declaring, the pressure is already inside the room. Crawford didn't need to say another word. The boxing public was doing the work for him, remixing his alleged advice into 1,000 viral interpretations. Analysts tried to calm things down, but that just poured gasoline on it. Whenever someone says people are overreacting, that's usually code for "we know exactly why this is scary." Former fighters chimed in with vague comments about styles making fights and patience being deadly. Nobody mentioned Crawford directly, but his shadow was everywhere. Like Voldemort with better footwork, the wild part was how perfectly this narrative fit Shakur's persona. He doesn't bark. He doesn't sell chaos. He doesn't chase viral moments. He fights like a man who enjoys watching opponents realize they've been trapped in a bad decision. Crawford allegedly framed this matchup not as a clash of skills, but as a psychological experiment. What happens when an emotionally explosive fighter can't force the reaction he needs? What happens when the crowd gets quiet and the opponent stays calm? Teofimo has always fed off energy. Big moments, big reactions, big nights. But Shakur doesn't give you that. He gives you silence. And silence is terrifying when you're used to applause. Then came the celebrity reactions. Not official endorsements. Of course, just interesting matchup tweets, side-eye emojis. Fighters liking posts they probably shouldn't have liked. One former champion joked that Teofimo fights like his inner monologue is yelling at him. Another compared Shakur's style to a slow Wi-Fi connection, frustrating, unavoidable, and eventually making you want to throw something. Harmless jokes on the surface, but underneath, the tone had shifted from excitement to concern. Teofimo's supporters tried to flip the script. They pointed to his explosiveness, his athleticism, his ability to change a fight in one exchange. And they weren't wrong. But Crawford's alleged advice wasn't about denying Teofimo's strengths. It was about making those strengths irrelevant, like bringing a flamethrower to a snowstorm. Impressive, but useless if you can't aim. That's when the outrage split into camps, one side screaming that Shakur would run and boring box his way to a decision. The other side laughing, saying boredom is just what domination looks like when you're on the wrong end of it. Boxing. Fans love violence, but they respect control. And control is Crawford's favorite language. Teofimo's interviews started, sounding defensive without him even realizing it. He talked about pressure, about forcing the action, about making fights exciting. All noble ideas, except none of them address the real problem. How do you force someone who refuses to be forced? How do you rush someone who's already waiting for you to rush? Crawford allegedly warned Shakur about that exact moment. The round where Teofimo realizes the plan isn't working. The second where frustration leaks into movement. That's when openings appear. Not because Teofimo lacks skill, but because his emotions demand resolution. Shakur doesn't rush resolution. He postpones it, over and over, like a cliffhanger that never pays off until it's too late. The pop culture comparisons got nastier. People started calling it Floyd versus Gaddy energy, except without the punches landing clean. Others said it felt like watching a thriller where the villain talks too much while the hero just watches. One viral post compared Teofimo to a sports car revving at a red light while Shakur waits calmly for it to turn green. The disrespect was subtle, but it cut deep. Promoters stayed quiet, which was the loudest response of all. Big fights survive on mystery, but they die when one side looks too comfortable. And Shakur, thanks to Crawford's alleged blueprint, looked disturbingly at peace. Training clips showed him relaxed, smiling, working angles like a man rehearsing, something he already knows will work. Meanwhile, Teofimo's camp doubled down on intensity. More power, more aggression, more everything. That contrast only fueled the narrative further, because boxing history is littered with fighters who try to outforce strategy. It rarely ends well. Crawford's own career is proof of that. He's dismantled pressure fighters, technicians, punchers, and hype machines by letting them beat themselves. The idea that he passed that mindset to Shakur felt less like mentorship and more like succession planning. By now, the conversation had completely shifted. This wasn't about who hits harder. It was about who blinks first, who gets bored, who panics, who abandons the plan. And every time Teofimo spoke, the internet dissected his words like a leaked audio recording, tone, pace, confidence. Nothing went unnoticed. The scandal wasn't that Crawford talked to Shakur. The scandal was that everyone believed him, because, deep down, fans recognized the truth. They'd seen this movie before. The loud star, the calm technician, the slow realization that fireworks don't scare someone who brought earplugs. And as the noise got louder online, one uncomfortable question kept echoing through the boxing world. What if this fight is already over, and nobody told Teofimo yet? By the time the noise reached its peak, the damage was already done. That's the funny thing about narratives in boxing. Once they take shape, they don't ask for permission. They don't care about press conferences or training camps. They move on their own, reshaping reputations like wet cement drying in real time. And this one had settled into something Teofimo couldn't punch his way out of, because now every version of TeofimoLopez was being compared to a hypothetical version of ShakurStevenson, who had Terence Crawford's voice in his head. That's not fair, but boxing has never cared about fair. This sport eats momentum for breakfast and calls it legacy. And suddenly, Teofimo's explosiveness didn't look intimidating anymore. It looked predictable. Dangerous, yes, but predictable. In the way thunderstorms are dangerous once you know where to stand. The public perception began to tilt in a way that was subtle but devastating. Not Teofimo is overrated. Not Teofimo can't win. Nothing that dramatic. It was worse than that. Became Teofimo has to prove something now. And once you're fighting to prove something, you're no longer fighting freely. You're chasing validation instead of victory. Shakur, meanwhile, didn't say much. That silence spoke louder than any trash talk ever could. No denials, no confirmations. No dramatic speeches about respect. Just calm training footage, clean movement, and the quiet confidence of someone who knows chaos favors the prepared. Crawford's alleged influence hovered over it all like an unspoken endorsement. He didn't need to tweet. He didn't need to clarify. His reputation had already done the talking. Teofimo's camp tried to regain control of the story. They talked about power being the equalizer, about speed changing everything, about pressure breaking technicians. All valid points 10 years ago. But this wasn't about raw ability anymore. This was about psychology, about patience versus urgency, about whether Teofimo could resist the urge to turn every moment into a statement. Because that urge. The crack, Crawford allegedly warned Shakur about that final stage. The moment when Teofimo realizes he's behind on the unofficial scorecards in his own head. The crowd isn't reacting the way he wants. The opponent isn't engaging. The clock feels slower. That's when fighters abandon intelligence and gamble on drama. And that gamble is where careers change forever. The boxing world began framing the matchup differently. Less who wins, and more how long before something goes wrong. That's a dangerous place to be mentally. Once doubt creeps in, it doesn't announce itself, it whispers. It shows up in foot placement, in punch selection, decisions made half a second too early. Shakur thrives in that half second. He lives there. Reputations don't collapse overnight. They erode. Teofimo's confidence didn't vanish, but it started to sound defensive. He spoke about forcing the issue, about making it a fight, about not letting someone run. Every word reinforced the very blueprint Crawford allegedly laid out. The more Teofimo talked about control, the more it sounded like he feared losing. And fans noticed. Commentary shifted from excitement to anticipation of a breakdown. Not a physical one, a mental one. The kind where a fighter wins rounds but loses composure. Where frustration builds silently until it explodes in one reckless exchange. That's when Shakur would be waiting. Calm, balanced, unrushed. Like a man watching a clock. He knows favors him. The consequences stretched beyond the ring. Endorsements, marketability, narrative positioning. Teofimo has always sold energy and excitement. Shakur sells inevitability. Crawford's alleged involvement tilted the business calculus. Suddenly, Shakur didn't look like the boring technician critics loved to dismiss. He looked like the adult in the room. And boxing, despite pretending otherwise, always rewards the adult eventually. Even neutral fans began saying it out loud. This feels like a lesson fight, not in skill, but in discipline. The kind of bout where one fighter leaves with answers, and the other leaves with questions that follow him into every future matchup. Those questions are heavy. They show up late at night. They don't care how hard you train. Teofimo could still win. Let's be clear about that. Power doesn't disappear because of narratives. Athleticism doesn't evaporate because of whispers. But now, the margin for error looked microscopic. Every mistake would be magnified. Every impatient move would be treated like confirmation. That's the cruel part of leaked strategy. It doesn't just give your opponent a plan. It gives the world a lens. And Shakur, he didn't need to dominate. He didn't need to embarrass. He just needed to stay himself, calm, precise, unbothered. Let Teofimo fight the silence. Let the crowd grow restless. Let impatience creep in. Crawford allegedly said the hardest opponent isn't the man in front of you. It's the version of yourself that can't stand waiting. As the dust settled, one thing became painfully clear. This wasn't a scandal built on trash talk or theatrics. It was built on credibility, on the idea that one of the coldest minds boxing has ever seen quietly handed over the keys to dismantling chaos. Whether Crawford actually said every word attributed to him almost didn't matter anymore, because everyone believed he could have, and belief in boxing is lethal. By the time the opening bell eventually rings, the fight won't just be happening in the ring. It'll be happening in Teofimo's head. In the pauses, in the feints, in the moments where nothing happens and that nothing feels unbearable. That's where Shakur will live. That's where Crawford made his career, and that's where the next scandal will be born. Because if this blueprint works even halfway, the fallout won't stop here. It'll ripple. New matchups, new doubts, new questions about who really controls the fight when power meets patience. And when the dust finally clears, boxing won't be asking who won. Now listen. If you're still here, congratulations. You just survived a masterclass in boxing psychology that didn't come with a tuition fee. This is the part where you stop pretending you're just watching and admit you're emotionally invested. Because if this fight goes the way that blueprint suggests, the internet is going to implode like a bad crypto launch, so let's get something straight. If you think Shakur is boring, say it with your chest in the comments. If you think Teofimo's power overrides patience, type it loud. And if you think Terence Crawford just casually dropped the most dangerous advice. In modern boxing, don't sit there quietly like this isn't wild. Debate it, argue it, Fight it out in the comments section like grown adults with Wi-Fi and opinions. And while you're at it, smash that like button like it owes you money and just said, "I'll pay you back tomorrow." Don't tap it politely. Hit it with intent. Because every like tells the algorithm this scandal deserves oxygen. And trust me, there's plenty more where this came from. If you're not subscribed yet, that's cute, but also irresponsible. Scandals don't announce themselves. Leaks don't come with warnings. And boxing drama drops here before it hits your timeline sideways. Subscribing means you don't miss the moment. Narratives flip, egos crack, and reputations start sweating under the lights. Because this story, it's not over. Not even close. Whether this blueprint works or backfires, the fallout is guaranteed. New beefs, new excuses. New "I told you so" moments. And when they happen, you already know where to find them. So stay locked in. Stay loud, stay skeptical. This is the Punch Press, where secrets don't stay secret, and boxing never gets comfortable.